Hey there everyone. Want to do a quick video just showing you my new setup, what I did with my Tritech T5 airless sprayer and how I converted it to an air-assisted airless with this Wagner G47 spray gun and my Rolair air compressor. So first of all, I highly recommend this gun. And I would say if you want to go from airless to air-assisted airless, that if you already have an air compressor that's like this Rolair air compressor, I've had this for years and it's ultra quiet. It really is really quiet. So it's nice to take to a job site and it doesn't have this loud clangy motor that a lot of air compressors. The reason for this setup is because I already have an air compressor. I already have an airless that will do the job. And I already did have a Kremlin air-assisted airless gun and lines. I pretty much had everything I needed, except that my Kremlin pump was too small to handle the waterborne coatings. And I had bought the Kremlin pump back when I was doing pre-cat lacquers and stuff like that and worked super for that. But when it came to waterborne coatings, I found that I was just lagging a little bit. Number one, I only have a small air compressor, so that had to feed the pump and the air to the line. And I did not have a setup for taking a large air compressor to a job site and stuff like that. So anyway, the beauty of this is it's stuff I already had for the most part, except the gun. I ended up buying this gun because I needed another one anyway. And then the T5 Tritech gun, the Tritech pump, that one runs on electric, so it's not using air. And then this thing pretty much provides my air to my atomizing air to my gun. And this thing will totally keep up. I don't know what the CFM is on this, but this thing, no problem. I think it has a 2.5 gallon tank on it. And I don't know what the CFM is on it. That'd be something you might want to watch if you do go buy an air compressor. But here's the thing, if you're going to have to go buy an air compressor and buy the gun and the lines and all of that in the T5, or even a T4 I think would work, you may as well just buy something like the Titan Air Coat, which has got everything in one unit. It's got the airless pump as well as a built-in air compressor, and it comes with, I think it comes with maybe the 3600 gun, which I think, and I don't know for sure, but I think it's pretty much the same thing. So here's how you want to do this. If perchance you have an air compressor, you've got some of this stuff, you want to convert your airless pump to make it air assisted. And I will say this right up front too, not all airless pumps are going to work for this. I have a GX19, a Graco, and I tried it on that, but the GX19 Graco has too much pulsating. It's got like that piston pump, which I think the Tritech does too, but the Tritech tends to be more of a steady pulsation, purrs more like a kitten, whereas the Graco GX19, it tends to pulsate pretty much, and so it did not work very well with my Kremlin gun that I put on there. I don't think it would matter what kind of gun you put on that. It's just that it pulsated, so you would be spraying a door or something like that, and in the middle of the door, it would pulsate and stop sending fluid, and it just didn't work. So this T5 does work. I gave this a shot. I just put this sprayer on. I gave it its first run yesterday. I sprayed some cabinet doors. So basically, if you're going to buy this GM4700, which I really recommend, I actually really like this gun for a number of reasons, and I'll point out some things about this gun just shortly and why I would buy this above, perhaps even above the Kremlin, even though I think as far as quality of spray, they both do the same thing, but there's some advantages to this one. So if you're going to buy this, I highly recommend just buying the fluid and air lines right away too. And then you just simply disconnect your you disconnect your fluid line from your pump, and this one will just hook right up, same threads and everything, so that's nice. My Kremlin gun did not hook up to that. I had to put a special adapter in there. I had to kind of retrofit it to make that work. And then on the air compressor side, what you're going to want to do on the air side is add a coupling to go into your air compressor. What I had tried first is just go straight into my air compressor and use this regulator to regulate the air pressure. But I found that this one doesn't dial it in well enough. It's first of all, it's really kind of a little harder to turn, and just it doesn't have enough of fine-tune dialing in. So I ended up just using something I already had on hand, and that was this regulator that I had on another spray gun, another HVLP. So you can actually mount this. You could mount this to your gun on the airflow side right here. You could do that, and then you'd have your adjustment right at the gun all the time. Or you can put it here at the pump, at the air compressor, which is what I did. I actually started with it here, but I didn't really care for it there, so I ended up putting it back here. One little tip about this, make sure you get the direction correct. I think the first time I put it on, I had it on going the opposite way. So I put it on this way, but that was wrong. So I had to end up reversing my fittings so I could put it on this way, and then this just punches right in there. So now I can adjust my air with this and lock it in, kind of like you do on a on an air-assisted airless unit. You control your airflow there, and on the Tritech, you simply control your fluid here. So I want to talk a little bit about the advantages of air-assisted airless, and then I'll talk about why I like this gun. So at this point, this is all ready to spray. Typically, if I'm spraying waterborne coatings out of a airless, I usually use the gun. I had been using the gun that came with it, which was the 380, Tritech 380, and the fine finish tips. And again, if you're going to spray airless, that's absolutely the way to go. I love the Tritech 380 gun and their fine finish tips. Absolutely love them. My go-to tips were like a 308 for cabinetry, 306 even sometimes for on-site verticals if I really wanted to have control. And to be honest with you, the 306 or a 206 sprays almost like HVLP. You've got like a lot of control. So if you want to stick with airless but want more control, go with the 206 or the 306 Tritech fine finish tips. But back to this, the disadvantage of going to 306 or 206 is you really need a lot of pressure on your pump, a lot of fluid pressure to eliminate tails. So I found if I'm using like a 306, I'm running a pretty high fluid pressure. So you're really putting a lot of pressure on, and the more pressure you have, the more overspray you're going to have, even with a smaller tip, because you just got a lot of material shooting out at a high rate of speed and bouncing off the surface of your substrate and just creating overspray. So the thing that I like about this one is you can dial this way down. With the black, I was shooting this stuff at about 500 psi. So at 500 psi, that's very low fluid pressure. If I wouldn't put any air at my gun, you'd have tails, of course. You know, to get this to spray, you'd have to crank the fluid pressure way up. So the advantage of air-assisted airless is that you can lower your fluid pressure way down, and then you use your atomizing air at the tip of your gun to atomize those tails, to get rid of those tails. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about this gun. What I like about this gun, like I said, I like the Kremlin. I have that one too, the golden, the Xcite gun, which is high quality gun. The thing that about the Kremlin gun, I'll start with that one. The thing that I don't like about the Kremlin gun, number one, is if those tips get clogged, they can be a nightmare to clean out. you got to get the tip out, and you have to really go in there and dig out all the paint and the junk, whatever, in lacquer thinner or something like that, or acetone, and then use one of those tip cleaning needles to open up the hole, you know. And it takes time. You got to do all that. You put it back in, and then it happens again, and it can get a little frustrating. So the thing I like about this is, even though this uses flat tips, these tips are actually reversible, where you can take it out, put it in backwards, and blow out the clog. Let me just find a tip here. Okay, so here's a couple tips I got. This is the tip, the standard tip. And then I also bought this one, which is their little higher grade tip. It's actually a dual orifice tip to break up bubbles. So I got one of each to try out, and I'll show a little more maybe on another video the difference between these two tips and how they spray. But here's the beauty of these things. They're reversible. They have like this little eye on the back, so you can just put this out, blow your fluid backwards through this tip, and it'll blow out the clog. So I've had it happen a couple times. It's very simple to get the clog out. No needles, no going in there and trying to remove gunk with a brush or anything like that. Okay, so the other thing about this gun, there's two different air caps available. There's a blue air cap, which they recommend for high viscosity materials, and then there's the red cap for lower viscosity materials. So if you're going to get this gun and you do a variety of spraying, I would recommend just getting both of them. It's going to come with one or the other. I got to choose which one I wanted. I started with the blue, and then I very quickly also bought the red one. There are definitely advantages to this red one with lower viscosity materials. Okay, so the other thing I like about this gun over the Kremlin is that it doesn't have a whole lot of parts inside to come apart and get loose and get lost and all of that. Like with the Kremlin, there's that ring here on the nozzle that can pop off or get broken, and it's got wearable parts, whereas this gun has these two nylon parts here that they say are non-wearable. Now, they can break. If you drop this on the concrete, they'll break, but they're non-wearable. So really easy to clean. They're not going to fall out and get lost. And if they do break, they're really cheap to replace. So I actually just bought one of each, and I'll just keep them with me. I don't want to be in a predicament where I break one and have to wait for parts to come in. So I would recommend buying those two tips, or those two parts as well. Get both your red and the blue air caps. So the other thing I like about this gun is it's got swivels on both the air and the fluid. So as you watch this, you can basically lay this in any position, turn it in any position, and that's really, really nice about that. The other thing I like about it is you don't need any tools to take apart this gun. This of course comes apart by hand, and then this part right here takes apart your filter. So, boy, I got this tight. All right, so you can loosen the filter by hand. I'm just going to show you. And you can also buy different types of filters. So kind of like an airless, where you can put 100 mesh or 150 mesh. You can do the same thing with these guns, whereas with like the Kremlin, they basically have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Kremlin only has one. And it's very small. And then, of course, but the Kremlin's is very small. But look at the size of this one. That's a pretty big filter, right? So you've got a little more surface area there. And that just comes apart by hand. This is the yellow 100 mesh blue one. They also make a blue one. It's 150. So I started with the 100 mesh. I may go to 150. I don't know. I think 100 probably is good. And then just screw this on by hand until that's tight. Trying to hold the camera and do this at the same time doesn't always work very well. There we go, nice and tight, easy to handle. So yeah, that's it. I would highly recommend this. I bought this gun, and I'll put a link for this as well, from Total Finishing Solutions or Total Finishing Supplies. I think they use both of those names, but you can buy this from them, and I recommend going with someone like that where you've got support behind the product you're buying. Talk to Tony, and he can set you up with what you need. Even with airlines and fittings and all of that good stuff, he'll set you up. And if you have any questions while you're working, you have any issues, just get on the phone with him. He'll walk you through how to fix the issues you have. You're having problems with spraying, with bubbles, you name it. Tony has been a great help. So Total Finishing Supplies or Total Finishing Solutions. And like I said, if you've got all the stuff to build this machine from scratch like this, I would recommend this. But again, if you don't got the compressor, you're going to have to buy a lot of the stuff. Why don't you just go ahead and buy the Titan Air Coat? It comes with a built-in compressor, comes with the gun, comes with one of the caps, and that's probably going to be my next sprayer that I buy. I really hope to buy one of those and give that a shot. But in the meantime, this will be my first one. Really loved how it sprayed. I was able to spray, like I said, 500 psi, and then talk a little bit about the air yet. 500 psi, and with the coating that I was spraying, I had to go up to like about 30 psi on the air to get rid of the tails. So I think it's going to really vary. Every coating is going to be different. So that was working with like a black. I was working with a black Malaysia, the HKA 114. Today I'm going to be spraying some the HKR 114 in white. So I'll be curious to see, how that's going to spray in comparison to what I was spraying yesterday with the black. With the black, I was also using the 30. I was going to talk a little bit about these tip sizes yet, right? So the tip size of the bubble buster that I bought is, their numbers are kind of backwards compared to some of the other reversible tips. So this is a 12/30, meaning it's got a 12 orifice size, and a 30 is the fan pattern. So kind of like a 308 on a reversible tip, 3 meaning that's half the fan pattern. Is the same thing here. One more thing about this spray gun, it does have a little bit of fan control right here, which the Kremlin does as well. Most AAA guns will. Just remember this, that fan pattern is still mostly determined by your tip size. So if you get, I think this one is a 4, it's either a 411 or 412. Actually, that's a 309. That's a 0930. So it's like basically a 309. Very small tip. And then I also got a bigger one. I have a 411 and a 413. And then I bought this one, this double orifice or dual orifice, which is basically a 3012. So that actually worked really nice. I'm finding that, yeah, the orifice size needs to be probably just a little bigger than you would on like a Tritech fine finish tip. So on the Tritech fine finish tips, we're going way down to like 206, 306, 308 kind of being my standard. But here again, I'm kind of new to this, so I'm still learning, but I really did like that. I really did like this 3012. The nozzle that came with it, I could select the tip that I wanted when I bought the gun, and they kind of recommended the 411, and so that's what I got. With cabinet painting, the 4 basically translates to an 8 to 10 inch pattern. Back to this fan pattern, this really only gives you about a 2 inch adjustment. So if you have a 3 inch, or if you have a 308, for example, this would give you a 6 to about 8 inch fan pattern, and the 411 gives you about an 8 to a 10. So it doesn't give you a lot of adjustment, not like an HVLP, but it does give you a little bit. So you can kind of sometimes play with even with your atomization and tails by your fan pattern a little bit. All right, yeah, so basically the black I was spraying, it's a little thinner than white. I started with the blue. I started with the the single orifice tips, and I was getting a lot of micro bubbles. It just didn't matter what I did, it just a lot of micro bubbles. I talked to Tony at Total Finishing Solutions, and he told me to lower my fluid pressure down to like 500 and give a little more atomizing air. So I did that, but I also switched to this double orifice tip, and that pretty much took care of that problem. No micro bubbles in the black. I did try a little bit of white, and I had no issue with micro bubbles there. So like I said, every coating is going to be a little different. Every coating you may have to play around a little bit with the tips, double orifice, single orifice, and even the air caps. So I hope that all helps, and I'll do some videos of spraying a little later today.